welcome. My name's Tori Starkey and I'm so pleased you can join us today for our session on how to create more value and return from your marketing customer experience effort. So I'm very, very excited to have our industry experts join us today as we discuss the trends driving growth in the messaging market. And as you can see on the agenda, each of our experts will share a 5-minute keynote. We'll then move to a panel discussion. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce our expert panel for today. We have Karen Powell. So Karen is one of Asia Pacific's leading revenue strategists with experience in regional go-to-market planning, integrated digital marketing, audience intelligence, marketing automation and events. She's advised some of the world's most renowned multinational brands, including Salesforce, Telstra, EMC and Amex. And Karen is currently overseeing Bastion's operations globally, ensuring that they deliver world-class experiences to clients across Australia, the US, as well as throughout Asia. So thank you so much for joining us today, Karen.
You're welcome.
We've also got Tom Lancaster joining us today. And Tom's expertise spans messaging technology and strategic consultancy across a number of industries. So Tom's currently leading product development efforts for Known's conversational AI solution called Conversa. And Conversa is best described as what the next generation of customer engagement should be. So thanks for joining, Tom. Finally, we're excited to welcome Scott Combs, Head of Marketing for Google Cloud. Now, Scott is a seasoned SaaS marketing leader. He's renowned for delivering cutting-edge digital campaigns and marketing technology that drive real ROI. So his extensive B2B marketing experience is across Asia Pacific as well as Australia, and includes leading marketing teams in Dell, Oracle, and cybersecurity startup Shield. So Scott, if it's okay, we'd actually love to start today's session with you sharing your expertise in creating omnichannel experiences to drive results. So over to you.
Look, thanks, Tori. Thank you for the invite and the intro. Look, I think 5 minutes is a pretty brief time to cover omnichannel marketing experiences, but look, I'll do my best. I think that the marketing technology that we have sort of at our fingertips today means that, we have the opportunity to get multiple, types of content in front of different customers, targeting different personas at each stage of the buying cycle. I think that different channels start to produce different outcomes. So when you're sort of, true omni-channel marketing, digital is fantastic at hitting people at top of funnel and really sort of creating that first level of interest, all the way down to events, which, at least in my experience, I think they're not fantastic at creating new pipeline, but they're incredibly effective at actually a progressing pipeline. So I think with that in mind, then we see COVID come about, and what we see is really, a fantastic opportunity to use digital to get in front of our audience who potentially haven't used that channel before, and through different types of conversations. But what we also saw is really the emergence of digital fatigue. So we're sort of moving from a place of omni-channel experience to where I like to think is more of a preferred channel experience. We really, I believe that we need to get much more targeted in the way that we engage our customers, where historically it was the basics of right customer, right offer, right time, where we're really looking at, yes, the right customer, but we're looking at the right channel with the right conversation. I use this C-suite as a really good example, and I've spent a lot of time marketing to them through many organizations. And what we find is that, when you're talking that, fantastic omni-channel experience, when you're targeting this group, you're really looking at, they don't attend many events. So you're looking at targeting them to and from work on a mobile device, because they have very limited time, and ideally conversational marketing. And if you're going heavy content, you send it to them on a Friday because they will download it and read it on the weekend. And even now with changes that we're seeing with their engagement in digital, is this group is now actually much more interested in doing digital roundtables because it's easy to attend, still with their peers, but from a time conscious and engagement perspective, they will do 3, 5, 6 times as many roundtables as they did previously, purely because of the channel that has now presented itself. So I think, as we see the sort of changes that have come post-COVID, I think omni-channel is great. I think preferred channel is better. And as we'll probably cover more in this session, I think the opportunity and the role that conversational marketing will have, particularly in the B2B space, is one of the biggest opportunities that we have as marketers. Even in a recent sort of large event that we ran globally around our public sector summits, you know, we had, I think, 60 tracks. There were only 6 run in this region that I ran, but 3 of those were in the top 5 globally. But the reason for that is that they were all conversations. So they were with local leaders driving fantastic digital transformation across education, government. We also had a leader out of the US come and talk around AI and policy as well. So I think as we look to drive, you know, omni-channel experiences per se, I think it's the conversation that is really going to drive a high level of engagement going forward, and doing it through the preferred channel of the persona that you're looking to target.
Great, thanks, Scott, and couldn't agree more regarding preferred channel. That was really insightful. I can't wait to dig in a little bit more in the panel discussion. So, Karen, with your wealth of experience, are you able to share your own perspectives on customer engagement and how we can drive more from our efforts? I think, you know, in the current climate, it's pretty challenging. Most of the forecasts say it's going to get more challenging. So I think this topic is really, really pertinent at the moment.
Excellent. Thank you, Tori. So I think that right now it's actually a really exciting time to be a marketer. And the reason is that the business needs us more than ever now to be able to optimize what we're doing for the business and being able to support the business's revenue goals as well. So I think it's a really exciting time. So my question is, and coming back to just customer engagement and what that looks like, when we look at the types of channels, and when we think about this morning, even just coming into work or before you jumped onto this webinar, how many channels did you check before you jumped onto this? Did you check channels for work? Did you check channels for your family? Did you have personal channels that you checked? So I know just personally, I probably checked at least 15 channels this morning just before I came in. Back in the day, that used to be newspapers that people used to read, and probably be 2, right, that they would read. So I think that it's very, very different the way that we're engaging now with brands on a daily basis versus the way in which our parents and grandparents engaged many, many moons ago. And so over the past 30 years, we've had that boom of social, which rewarded our customers with vast connections, being able to have your public opinion posted on a public platform, being able to become a fan and an influencer and having that status. I think a lot of people now are still enjoying those benefits. And it's been an extremely exciting time. But that depth of relationship as a brand that we have with those customers on those platforms is still quite relatively shallow in a lot of ways, and still quite surface in the way in which we have that dialogue with customers. So even though we've created along the way all these beautiful engagements and really unimaginable moments, we've lost in some ways that personal one-to-one touch that we used to have. And having that brand trust, we've a bit moved away from brick and mortar, where we used to know the local owners of the shops. As we've kind of moved more into larger stores and box stores, we don't necessarily know the branch managers anymore, as an example. And we've lost that engagement where it's a bit more of a direct customer relationship. So then again, we've now created that overwhelm where there's so many channels for us to manage. Like I mentioned this morning, having 15 channels to check before I jumped onto this call. And we're moving now into an era where conversational AI is really coming to the fore in all of its forms, and it's aiming to reconnect us back to that personalized one-on-one, and really creating that omnipresent conversation so that we can have seamless and frictionless customer experiences across all touch points. And for me, I sometimes would now imagine a world where all of those channels are converging and where the actual conversational AI is humanized. So brands have now this ability to gain trust in personalization, provide knowledge, and create those deeper customer engagements that really cement brand attraction and brand loyalty. I do have some very more simplified, practical terms, what people can probably also look at. And from that point, it's more things like injecting some of that humanization into your marketing DNA, making sure that you're embracing technology even when it hurts, because I know as a marketer, it hurts when you have to stand up multiple technologies, but it's well worth it once you get it right. Really focusing on customer loyalty to make sure you get those quick wins, using the data that you got. There's nothing worse for a lot of customers than you having the data at your fingertips and you're not using it. investing in reputation, because in this new world where we're able to now communicate with customers, they will have the control seat and the driving wheel now of who they want to engagement and when. We now need to really work hard on reputation building as brands, because we may not be able to market and advertise them to them in the same ways that we previously did. So really starting to invest in that conversational ML and AI with even live agents will be a really strong play. So just deepening that dialogue with customers so you can create revenue outcomes.
Perfect lead into Tom's session as well. So Tom, can you take us through your insights on the future of messaging and some of the use cases that you're seeing, really, I guess, providing the most opportunity for us to deliver more value via conversational AI and SMS?
Thanks, Tori. Thank you, Karen and Scott. I think what I'm going to talk about leads in quite well, or follows quite well from what you've both been saying about the peak around channels and about developing that personal connection with your customers. So I think it would seem like a massive oversight to not just at least acknowledge, right, this meteoric rise of large language models and generative AI tech that we've seen over the past couple of months from various technology companies. And it's clear that we have this shiny new set of tools, right, that we can play with, and that there's going to be this bit of an arms race between technology providers about who can do different things. I think interestingly to me, this race clearly is going beyond just like the LinkedIn sphere and the business and technology sphere. This is popping up in social media apps, radio shows, podcasts, entertainment, talk show panels. Clearly, this technology is not just something that's going to optimize the way we do business. It's actually going to change the way that society finds information, learns new things, educates, builds things, create things, and importantly for us, communicates with other people. And so while I think it will take a little bit of time for the tooling to develop and be in your hands, I do want to share a little bit about the direction that we believe messaging is going as part of your messaging mix, and that is into conversational commerce or conversational AI. So conversational commerce refers to the use of these messaging platforms, SMS, email, social apps or other, as a way to facilitate business and improve the experience of both customers and businesses, right? And it applies to both B2B and B2C businesses. Most people's first reaction might be like chatbots, and while those reactive chatbots that sit on websites and handle inbound messaging from users are really useful for providing that 24/7 customer service channel. What we see into the future is the use of proactive outbound conversations over SMS and other channels. And these outbound conversations are empowered by artificial intelligence so that they can be largely automated and therefore scale so much better than traditional conversations, which might otherwise have been had face-to-face or through voice contact. The reason that we see the conversations adding a new value to your messaging mix is that when they're used at the right time, they're generally more effective and more efficient at helping you connect to the right people and personalize your messaging accordingly. So that's the size of the prize. It's better outcomes for your customers, developing greater customer loyalty over time and delivering better business outcomes. And those business outcomes could be a reduction in the cost of acquisition and improving the quality of your leads, better onboarding of customers, the ability to book an appointment, download a white paper, check out an abandoned cart, or update some contact details. I want to share just 2 examples of many that we have so that you can sort of see this in action. These are real examples that we run every day with clients, de-identified clients, and really these are just the tip of the iceberg. And really these messages that are heading out over SMS are empowered by artificial intelligence specifically, which doesn't mean that the entire experience or the entire message is handled by a bot. You should see that these conversations are driven by automation and artificial intelligence, but very much supported by people in your business. There are many cases where conversations with your contacts, prospects, customers require a more humanistic approach, and we can really easily and need to really easily be able to hand off these conversations to a human operator to deploy the empathy that's required in that moment. The first example on that left-hand side is around lead qualification, right? This one's targeted at the leads of a business who haven't yet made a purchase, but for which we want to qualify. We might otherwise, if we didn't have this conversation, just be pushing this straight through to sales and spending time and money calling these prospects. This conversation is doing a couple of things. Firstly, it's letting the customer know that we are wanting to call them and giving them the option to bow out of that phone call. You might think, well, that's counterintuitive. Why would we want to get them, why would we want to allow them to opt out? Ultimately, we've done a hell of a lot of testing on this. The customers that say that they don't want to call are very unlikely to pick up the phone and are very unlikely to convert. And so you spending time and money and energy trying to contact them over the phone is not a great use of your time. The second thing that we're doing intelligently, and this comes back to the collection of first-party data and having that feedback into your business, is we're scoring these leads along the way. We look at whether or not they respond. We look at how they respond in terms of the sentiment. We look at their use of emojis. We look at whether or not they click the track link, and we can start to score and prioritize different opportunities and different leads based on how they're engaging in the conversation, which I think is a really powerful way of making sure that we are targeting the most likely leads to convert. In a real world example, with a similar type of conversation, what we saw with a customer was a 32% decrease in their cost per acquisition, I should say, simply by running this like pretty simple conversation. The second example there is builds on from the first. It's really about now scheduling that call, and what we can see here is that we again give the contact the ability to bow out of that call, but we also, importantly, if they would like a call, are able to pick up that type slot and put that directly back into a preferred appointment scheduling software. Again, the impact of this from a business is that you're calling the customer at the time that they want to get called, and you're not spending time and money calling them at times when they're otherwise probably unlikely to answer and convert. In terms of other examples that we've run, so we've run hundreds of conversations at all different stages of the customer funnel to improve conversion, reduce cost of acquisition, improve retention, and ultimately increase the customer's lifetime value. We've just seen the power of lead qualification, scoring, and appointments, but you can also automate things like collecting customer feedback through like NPS surveys, automating routine but really important and critical business processes like invoice reminders, failed credit card processing, etc., to really unlock that proactive outbound outcome that you're looking to achieve. Traditionally, the further up the funnel you get, conversations have been just too expensive or uneconomical, right? You tend to have more contacts at the top of your funnel than your bottom because of drop-offs of conversion. But with artificial intelligence, automation, integration, what we see is increasingly conversations being used further up the funnel in order to qualify leads. I'd encourage you to take a look, take a stock of where your biggest growth opportunities and pain points are for your customers and for your business, and you'll come up with ways of how you can improve your experience and influence customer behavior and ultimately convert your customers for life.
The adoption of conversational AI is exploding. We're probably seeing more than 22% expansion this year alone in the use of it globally. And it's likely to exceed about 17 billion by 2025 as far as the amount of conversational AI adoption that we're going to see. So what does that then mean for how we're going to leverage that and what we're seeing as far as changes in the way people are leveraging it? So the first one is really, as far as the way that buyers are perceiving it, they really want the CX of the experience to shine. And some stats are proving that it's actually ranked number 3 in comparison to price, which we know that customers are very price sensitive in this current environment, and product quality is the next area that they're really quite sensitive about. So that purchase decision making, CX really matters in helping to make that happen. They're also leveraging, a lot of brands are leveraging multiple platforms. So they're not sticking to one channel. So it's a combination of WhatsApp, Facebook, Messenger, WeChat, and so on. So pretty much every platform is in play. We're wanting to see as well some new tricks around paying by text. That seems to be something that customers are using to really convert on the moment, in the moment, and have that pay by texts, as well as video messaging, multiple platform transition, live agent transfers. I think I mentioned that earlier. And then lastly, the use of voice messaging seems to be picking up as well as part of the number of kind of tips that people are using. And that's simply because the Gen Zs prefer that as a way of communicating. So using voice messaging and just recording yourself and sending that message is a means to communicating. And so brands are now starting to pick that up as well as a way of deepening the engagement, and secondly, being able to convert and generate ROI.
Fantastic. And Scott, does that resonate? Have you been refining your mix to leverage messaging to drive results?
Look, I think in the B2B space, it's probably a little different just because of the length of the buying cycle that we see, particularly in the SaaS and the cloud space. What I would say is that in terms of, the capability of the MarTech that we have, particularly at driving those early discussions, we do see the technology getting to a point now we can target pretty well anyone at any stage in any persona and get the right messages. I think where the opportunity from I suppose a conversational AI is probably a bit further down the stack. So once you're actually getting to product-like discussions, and I think Tom touched on as well, is where definitely in terms of for very sort of short, simple questions that customers have regarding the product suite, etc. Conversational AI, chat, etc. Has a great role to play. And, as an organization at Google Cloud, we implement a lot of call center AI solutions throughout the region as well. So we're definitely seeing the growth there. For me, I'd love to see that probably go to the next step in terms of the AI capability of some of our MarTech stack to actually provide us with a lot more insights on the big data that creates. And I think that's something that we probably haven't taken that step yet. Probably something that people fail to realize is that for a large portion of organizations, they only use about 20 to 30% of the capability of their MarTech stack. So I think, and although the technology is fantastic, it is incredibly people intensive. That is, it's not the technology itself, it's actually, do you have the people that will understand the data that it creates? I can have, we ran a campaign at Oracle. We had, I think 32 different pieces of content targeting multiple personas, etc. But the amount of data and insights that created, we had 10,000 MQLs. Did we leverage those 10,000 opportunities to the level we should have? No, because we didn't have the capability to understand and get the level of insights that we needed and driving the right outcomes off the back. So I think the technology is fantastic, but don't understand the importance of having the people capability to use, understand, and leverage that insight is critically important. And I think that's where AI potentially has a really great role to play going forward, is actually using that big data to then provide us insights that would historically be, provided by your marketing team and or your analysts.
Doing away with people altogether, right? And to use the AI and to just set the bot loose on your customers. Your customers are clearly extremely important. You've either paid money to generate those leads. The technology isn't quite there just yet to completely replace your people with these bots. What we do say is that these artificial intelligence and technologies and these flows help empower your people to deliver more personalized experience at scale. And so I don't necessarily think it's an either or. Are we prioritizing human-to-human interaction ahead on the marketing priorities versus mimicking those interactions through automation and systems? What I see is these automated systems and AI help us scale those experiences and, really importantly, hand off to human operators at the appropriate time. And I think that's really the critical thing. We never really try to automate 100% of the possible conversations that get through. Humans are complicated. There's far too many variations. What we try and do is the 80-20 rule. We automate what we can automate and recognize that we need personalized human connection for 20%.
I would say I completely agree with what Tom has just shared. They're not completely two different things, one to prioritize and one to not. It's very much about building that, the dialogue with the customer, the deep dialogue, and understanding the actual data that you've got, data sets that you've got, and unlocking that. And so I agree completely with what Tom shared there. It's about focusing on the dialogue and then the format in which that dialogue takes shape.
There's so much negative connotations around AI, and from a personal point of view, I think that people potentially focus on some of the wrong components of this. That AI has the capability to do a huge amount of analysis in an incredibly short period of time. I was lucky enough when I was in Singapore, worked in a cybersecurity startup, spent a lot of time with other startups. And the classic example was when if you ever go and have a scan at the doctor's and it costs a lot of money and takes half a day, analyze, etc. There was a startup which had an AI solution which could do this in approximately 15 seconds or a minute. And it would do that. However, the recommendation from the scan would go to a doctor, they would check it, validate it. And so it's still always going to be about the customer experience. Ultimately, it's just how can the technology, improve that experience so that when you do have that human connection, it is spent discussing the right things instead of spending a lot of time analyzing data, which now can be done in other ways.
The customers that we see that get the best results from this, they understand their customer journey in enough level of detail, and having access to data, I think a few people have mentioned here now, is important, right? Understanding what data you have available, where are the drop-off points, where are the opportunities and biggest pain points for your customers and for your business. And so understanding what those 2 or 3 things might be, across your life cycle is really, really important. I think working with experts obviously helps, but you're using that data to basically start small, test and iterate is what I'd recommend. I think there is a temptation to see the end goal, right? Which might be, a set of 20 always on conversations that are supporting the growth of your business. But I would say that conversational AI does fundamentally change the way that your business operates. It's a form of business process optimization. And with any change in any business, there's going to be change management effort required, and there's going to be some resistance to change from different people that are impacted by that change in process. And so what I would say is start small, split test, come up with your hypothesis and look at the results and get your learnings, and use the results of those learnings to do the heavy lifting as far as the change management that's required. For the rest of the organization.
Domino's very much with their launch of Dom, which they created a chatbot which was able to place orders, track deliveries, and they did that via Messenger on Facebook, Alexa, and Google Assist. So that really helped to increase customer engagement. Sephora also launched their own bot, which they were providing personalized skin makeup and skincare recommendations via there. So that was also a really interesting use case. And then Uber, they've been using conversational AI and SMS for some time, but they've been using it to streamline their customer experience with the driver and rider. And so being able to have that communication going back and forth, whether it's in app or on SMS. And one of the key ones for safety has been the hands-free communication, so that the driver doesn't have distraction, and being able to communicate directly with the system to then write the SMSs and then communicate back to the driver. So that's been 3 use cases there. 91% of customers prefer to buy from companies that recognize and remember their preferences. So if there's one thing that can really help, it's really unlocking that data. And I agree with what Scott had to say. Having the right people that can actually interpret that data and then utilize it is really critical. Other things that we need to make sure that we're using and leveraging that will help are personalization, making sure that we're automating customer service. Responsiveness is huge on the list. If you want ROI and to generate revenue, you must be in that moment and being responsive and really enhancing those customer insights, as I mentioned earlier.
In the B2B space, we have a fair way to go on this. I think that one of the big things I see is, like today, particularly with the history of how, we have burnt through a few of the channels that we would like to use as B2B marketers, so that generally you can only email about 50% of your database. The other half is opted out. And if you've got that, that's a good data point. A lot of organizations, it can be worse, which means that in order to engage with a lot of your customers, it has to be your salespeople individually emailing, engaging them one-to-one. So one of the big opportunities I see is, how can we bring, new technology to enable them to potentially initiate some discussions for them, and also so that to better target a large part of the audience that we can't, and potentially using things like conversational AI, chat, etc., to engage a lot of the customers on that one-to-one basis. So it becomes the initiation of the discussion, but definitely not the control of the discussion. I think it's an area that we should definitely look into.
Okay. And I guess this is a question really for all 3 of you, but probably more so Karen and Scott. So during COVID, we did see paid search getting more expensive and competitive. Email in terms of open rates and engagement has been in decline for a while, as Karen alluded to. So we did see this kind of resurgence of SMS marketing because of its ability to reach customers anywhere, anytime, because we're all living on our phones. It does get the cut through and the engagement, obviously also risk, because it is a more personal channel as well. So what are you seeing as the most exciting use cases for SMS and messaging across marketing and customer experience at the moment?
I'm happy to tackle that one quickly there. So from an acquisition perspective, very much personalized promotions. So using SMS to have personalized promotions, invitations, and exclusive content that may not be able to be received in mainstream kind of channels. And then for customer service, it's really about using it for customer surveys, service communications, order updates, and being able to really automate some of those agent interactions is the other thing that we're seeing, which is giving a lot of benefit, is that automation of agents.
I think it's artificial intelligence and the algorithms. I'll just call it generally. I think people are changing the way that they find information. I think Gen Z, in a recent report, has said that 40% of them are preferring to use TikTok and Google to find information. And I think there's that AI and algorithms actually help in terms of the tooling that we have available to us as businesses and as marketers as well. So that's the trend I'd be looking at.
Aaron?
I'd say definitely, I'm going to put them together, investing in reputation so that you can deepen the dialogue with customer. So deepening that dialogue is critical.
And bringing us home, Scott.
Yeah, I just say +1 to what Karen said. It really is, for me, it's conversational marketing. That is moving to a point where you are providing your customers with really, that thought leadership, opinion-based content, obviously backed by fact, but really, we are getting back to that pure storytelling from a marketing perspective. And I think that, creates a fantastic opportunity for us as we see emerging technologies and channels come about.